Today, I want to talk about vulnerability, stretching ourselves beyond our comfort zone, and connecting to the essence of who we are, which really all three of those are interconnected. And I want to share a personal story about these things. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So this past Saturday, I sang in front of an audience. And it was the first time I really sang like that with musicians and in front of people that were coming to see this collaborative concert. So it was the first time I've ever done that. I haven't been in front of people, even giving a workshop or a talk in over 3 years. The last time I sang in front, I'm not a trained singer, but the last time I sang was probably 10 years ago with my ex doing Ukrainian songs, which is not even my language. And then really the only other time was 20 years ago when I had taken like a 4-week singing course. So we did a little performance in the cafe downstairs. So even though, of course, my background when I was younger was as a performer, singing is a very new kind of territory for me. And like I said, I hadn't even really been in front of people. I've been living such an insular life for the last, 3 years, I guess you could say. So it was a big deal. I felt very nervous leading up to it and also very excited. And I learned a lot in the experience. So that's what I want to share with you today. So, after so many, I could kind of give the whole backstory of, becoming a mother and moving to a very isolated place. And, a big part of who I am, the essence of who I am, has really been dormant, I would say, for the last nearly 10 years. Especially the artist in me, even though actually in the last 4 years, I've definitely recultivated her. I'm going to call her. I began doing what I call poetry in motion, which is, I just very off the cuff write a poem, find a piece of music, do spoken word to it and add movement to it, and I create these videos. And that was really for me to just reconnect to my creativity. I started doing them when I was sitting at the computer all day writing, and I needed to just move and be creative. And you think writing a book is creative, but actually sometimes it can be can be a bit of a drudgery, and especially if you're going through editing process and all of that. So it was something to really reignite my creativity. And I also began to teach myself how to play the piano and to sing. But of course I sing, me, myself, the piano, the wall, and I. And then occasionally I would just throw a video up online. And really what I was working around was the art of imperfection, of spontaneity, coming from a background as a professional ballet dancer where there is so much perfection, so much scrutiny. You can never kind of be good enough. I had to really unlearn perfection, and actually how I not only creative and artistically, I think just as a human, I don't think perfection is very helpful. I think, doing our best at something because we really want to put our full focus and attention and presence and our whole being into it and make it as good as we want to because we're fully engaged with it. That's a beautiful thing. But perfection, because it cannot be imperfect, there cannot be any mistakes, to me is just so rigid. And I've really embraced the opposite of that, which is imperfection as a reflection of just being human, right? So I've had to unlearn and let go a lot. And it's been interesting to look back and kind of see how that's been growing in a way. And so it was a beautiful experience, nerve-wracking, but beautiful experience to be able to take it to the stage, but take it to the stage in a very different way than I would have, say, 20 years ago. So I was rather nervous. And I got up on stage, and it was a very lovely environment. It was very gentle. It's not like being in the opera hall in front of 3, 4, 5,000 people. And I got up and I had the opportunity to be able to speak before, which was really good. And, for me to just kind of settle my nerves. But the theme of the evening was love. And so I was thinking about it, how do I want to relate to this theme as I'm singing this song? And I spoke about how often we relate love. There's a connotation of love, which for obvious reasons, as I've shared, I think in my previous podcast, we relate it to romantic love or towards someone or something, even if it's like the divine, God, the earth. And I was thinking about how coming up on stage and singing in front of people was a risk for me. It was really deeply vulnerable. And I said that. I said, this feels really vulnerable because I feel scared and I feel nervous. And so I thought, well, what about self-love? Self-love is the part that when I say I'm scared, like, God, can I do this? What if I forget my words, or what if my voice shakes, or, there's the fear of like, what if I can't do this? This is really scary. And self-love goes, it's okay. Like, I'm here for you. I will love and support and accept you no matter what happens. You could fuck up the words. Your voice could wobble. I'm still going to be here and I'm going to love you. And so love to me is the container. It's the container that holds our experience. And as I was sharing, it's like sometimes that experience is beautiful and joyful, and sometimes the experience is brutal and painful and scary. And that's life. That's being human. And love is the container that can hold it all, because love can hold anything and everything. It doesn't see it as good or bad or right or wrong. That's a positive emotion. That's a negative emotion. It holds it all, and it's forever present if we allow it to. And so the intention of my performance was, to let love hold our experience, to let it be the container for our experience. And what would that look like on a collective, individual and a collective level, if we lay in the lap of love more often and allowed it to hold our experience, no matter what was going on? Because our life is going through, our lives, but the world is going through quite a dramatic shift right now. So then I sang, and I felt nervous. I felt my heart pounding and, my legs shaking. And I was really surprised after to hear that people couldn't hear that, and what they were responding to was the presence that I brought to the stage. And when I was finished, it wasn't just about like receiving compliments for my voice. That's a beautiful, wonderful thing, but the acknowledgement of the presence that I had on stage, because what it was for me was, I was like, oh, the essence of who I am got to be seen. It got to come out. And I remember driving home on Saturday night thinking, like, I could hear my soul saying, thank you, Corinne. Like, thank you for doing this for me. Because I felt so happy and so light and elated, and like I was just me. I got to really be me. And then it's a beautiful thing to be witnessed for being who you truly are. Because I would say for the last 7 years of my life, living where I am and not doing the work that I love doing. I mean, I work online with clients, obviously, but I haven't done workshops in about 3 years, and I really miss that element of being in my element, which is conversing with people, and speaking in front of them or performing in front of them, or, being in connection with them. Because for me, even performance, even if you're on stage, it's a relationship. It's a conversation that you're having with the audience. The artist can't do anything without the audience, and the audience doesn't have the same experience without the artist on the stage, kind of thing. So whether it's performing some kind of artistic expression or doing the work that I love doing, that relationship, that rapport, that conversation is so beautiful, and it's food for my soul. It really is. So it felt so deeply nourishing, and so reflecting on it, I thought, God, but there was a point where I could have said, no, I can't do this. This is way too scary. Like the day before the show, I really could feel my heart. It was just like so nervous. And so it was, and there was even something on the day we were doing a tech rehearsal and I misunderstood something that someone said and it really triggered me. But what was interesting is 20 years ago, that trigger probably would have made me want to give up. Maybe I wouldn't have given up, but it would have really affected me. And I would have, it triggered the whole kind of, God, you can never fucking be perfect enough for someone, because there's always some, the director had an opinion or the teacher had an opinion or this person or that person had an opinion. And there was so much scrutiny. And I always felt as a performing artist that I felt like the pawn on the chessboard that was being moved around. And even if sometimes I was the pawn and sometimes I was the queen of the board, I still felt like, I'm limited to the four corners of this board and it's not my life. It's not my free will. I felt like I was being, it sounds terrible to say I was being used. I mean, obviously I was being believed in and supported, but it also felt like the essence of who I am felt like it was being taken and molded into something that someone else wanted, for me to fulfill their vision. And of course, in a collaborative process like that, there's an element to that, but you shouldn't have to lose your own kind of soul mark, if that makes any sense. The essence, again, of who you are. So it triggered that. I was like, shit, she just can't fucking be perfect enough. Excuse my language. You have to know that sometimes in this podcast that happens. Sorry if it causes offense. But what was very fascinating for me is I just said, no, I don't care. Like, I can't do this I'm not doing this for other people's validation, and I can't please everyone, and maybe not everyone's going to like it. And, we all have our own projections and we all have our own, likes, right? Like some people like a certain type of genre of music more than another, or a type of voice, so I basically just told myself, I'm not doing this for anyone but me. I'm doing this because I love singing and it brings me joy and it's stretching me way beyond my comfort zone to do it in front of people. But that is so enlivening. So the two things that came up for me was I was really choosing me and I was doing this for me. And even though it was a misunderstanding, but I feel like it was there for a reason. It was really showing me what am I made of and why am I doing this, and that how committed I am to doing things in my life for me. It doesn't matter what other people think. Because often what keeps us from doing things is because we're afraid of failure and we're afraid of rejection and we're afraid of ridicule and being embarrassed. But the thing is, the reason why we should be doing things is because it brings us joy. And people will always have their opinion. And I was very fortunate to be met with a really lovely reception after and have a lot of positive feedback. And that was lovely. But the most important thing for me was I did it because I loved doing it. And I was supporting me. I was believing in me. So that was a huge realization and a beautiful experience to have. And the reason why I wanted to push myself beyond my comfort zone and why I want to talk about it here is because I think it's so important for us to do that. I remember my mom actually told me, she had sent me something a couple of weeks before where someone was saying, you should do something that scares you every week. And I so agree with that, because I think now more than ever, or maybe humans have always kind of been like this, but somehow I feel like it's more ingrained somehow in our society right now, because safety, quote unquote, is so over focused or over glorified. And I think safety can actually be really limiting. So we get very easily stuck in routine and the safety of routine, the predictability of routine, but we can also begin to feel really unalive. And I had about a week kind of around Christmas, after Christmas and New Year's, and my birthday's on the 2nd. So there's always stuff that kind of comes up, I think, before our new birth cycle begins. And I was feeling really, really deeply unhappy. And I just thought, because of where I live, I find it very, it's not feeding me in the way that I would like to be fed. And so there was a part of me that felt just so like I'm dying on the inside. I really am. I'm just withering away and I can't do this anymore. And so this kind of opportunity to sing and stretching myself beyond, because my life has been so predictable here, and I'm not saying it's all bad, I do have beautiful moments, but there's a kind of like I live in a very kind of contained, safe, very predictable place. And so I kind of felt like, oh God, I feel like I've become like a fawn, and it's not until I leave this area that I remember actually I'm a tiger, like I have my adventure legs and I'm a tiger and I can do things that scare me. And sometimes I think when we're too much in our comfort zone, we get a little bit complacent, we get too comfortable. And the irony is that when we get too comfortable in that way, we become more anxious because we're not pushing ourselves to the edge. We're not experiencing that thing that scares us a little bit. We're not stretching ourselves, and we're not having to deal with things that give us courage. Because like I think of it with, look at children. The children that climb the trees, they build confidence because what they're testing is their courage. And the kids that don't climb the tree or are told not to climb the tree, they will always have the fear of climbing the tree because they haven't had that experience of, it's not about, oh, you're not going to have fear. It's how do you be courageous in the face of fear? We're going to have fear, whether it's emotional, physical, psychological. Fear is a part of being human. But how do we respond to it? How do we be with it? And courage is the main aspect of needing to be with fear. And where does courage come from? Cœur, which is heart. So you need heart, you need love in order to have the courage to face and be with your fear. And I think it's so enlivening when we do that, when we push ourselves beyond our comfort zone. And we feel very much engaged with what we're doing and we feel alive. I mean, this isn't putting you into physical danger, right? I'm not saying like, don't go out and do something stupid. Sometimes doing something that makes us feel deeply vulnerable terrifies us. It's going to scare the living crap out of you, but it's going to be the thing that makes you feel so alive. And that was my experience. It was like, wow, okay. It's like the pilot light got reignited. And I felt alive again. And it's because I'm connecting to the essence of who I am. I've given it the permission to come out and be seen. And it's been witnessed. And I allowed it to come out and play and not let fear hold it back, suppress it, which was really what was making me feel really down and really sad. And so now, I still have my qualms with where I live, but all of a sudden my perspective of just everything, life in general, is very different because it's like, oh, I feel alive again within myself. Okay, so I want to do more of this. I want to stretch that comfort zone. I want to put myself out there more. I want to create more and create these opportunities where we can do that. And it's not just about stretching yourself beyond your comfort zone, but again, really connecting to the essence of who you are and allowing that to express itself and to have a voice. And, for each one of us as individuals, that's going to have a different medium, right? It's going to come out in a different way. But can we give ourselves the permission? And all of this requires being vulnerable. We can't feel alive without being vulnerable, because being vulnerable is just being human. It is a crock of shit and it's a big lie that society says don't be vulnerable. It's bad to be vulnerable. It's weak to be vulnerable. Your emotions are weak. Your humanity are weak. No, I'm sorry. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. Your emotions, your vulnerability is what makes you human, and it is your humanity that is so beautiful. It is not your perfection. Your face doesn't need to be perfect. Your body doesn't need to be perfect. Your voice doesn't need to be perfect. Your skill doesn't. You connecting to the essence of who you are and being your human self. And sometimes it's going to be messy and vulnerable and out of control. That's okay. You be you, and that's what's going to be the most beautiful thing that you can do and be. I remember when I was in my early 20s, I had a boyfriend at the time where, I was a dancer, so I loved going out dancing, and I, would just go to a club or whatever. If there was music on, I would dance. And I remember he was really shy. He didn't want to do it. He's like, I can't dance. And I remember taking him out onto the dance floor once. And I just was like really goofy. I'm like, let's just dance really goofy in a really silly way. And so he started doing that. We started laughing, and then other people were laughing, and they were kind of joining in, and then we kind of fell into dancing. And I was saying to him, when you watch someone, it's not like, I'll use dance as an example. It's not because they're an amazing, perfect dancer. Like, yes, that can be enjoyable, but you can also just have so much enjoyment watching someone doing something that they are fully enjoying themselves, whether it's dancing or singing or whatever. And they might not be the perfect dancer, the perfect singer, or the perfect anything, but you see them enjoying themselves so much that you can't help but just enjoy with them. Brings a smile to our face. That's the authenticity that we're responding to, the essence of who they are in that moment. And on the flip side, I can say the reverse of that is I've seen dancers and singers and, actors or, people that are highly skilled, that give a perfect technical performance, but there's no soul in it. And I don't enjoy it so much because the essence isn't there. The perfectionism of the skill. Okay, they can get their leg up to their ear. They can do 5 pirouettes. But if there's no heart and there's no soul and there's no passion and there's no humanity in it, it lacks a dimension, for me at least. And I'm not saying that to judge anyone, but it's just for me, what I'm drawn to is when something is very much alive. And it's alive when someone is really connected to their being and the essence of who they are. So I think you get the point. I think I've rambled on long enough, but I just wanted to share that because it was a very beautiful personal journey. And I want to put the invitation out there. So I want to go back to the beginning. If you can allow love to be the container for your experience that says no matter what you do, think, or feel, it's okay to be you. Like love is there to support you, to love you, accept you. Can you allow yourself to be held in that container and then let yourself be free within it? Stretch yourself, feel afraid, get nervous, stretch yourself where it's like, ooh, this is really freaking uncomfortable. And then let your soul, your spirit, your essence, who you truly are, whatever you want to call it, let it out. Let it out of the cage. Let it be free. Let it express itself, no matter what form that takes. It doesn't have to be on a stage in front of people. It doesn't have to be artistic. It can be anything and everything, right? Whatever is unique and personal and has meaning for you, that your heart wants you to express and experience, do that. But first, let love hold you so that you feel safe. And when you feel safe, then you can be vulnerable. Then you can push yourself beyond the borders that you're used to staying within, and you can let yourself fly. So hope that helps or supports you. Take it or leave it, as always, and loving you from afar. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.